Hello and welcome everybody. I'm so delighted that you could join us today. My name is Angelina. I am the User Services Librarian at HathiTrust and my pronouns are she or they. And since 2015, I have served as chair of the user support team. So our plan for today, before we get into the main part of our program, I'll just quickly review our Zoom protocols and code of conduct for today. Then I and three of my colleagues will provide a brief overview of the HathiTrust user support team and how we're structured. And then we'll go into the main part of our program where we'll hear from members of the HathiTrust user support team. So please note that today this code of conduct applies to this event, and I see that someone has pasted it into chat, so please do read that and keep in mind as you're interacting today. And we are, as many of you have been using Zoom for a while, you may be familiar with these features, but I do want to point out that audio and video are muted for all participants upon entry. So nobody will be able to talk other than the members of our program today. You can switch between the speaker view and the gallery view if you want to change the way your screen is displayed. And I do encourage you to turn on closed captioning if you need it. And I'm just gonna check if that is turned on. I'm not sure if it's turned on. Okay. I'm not sure. Okay. You are muted for the most part, and if you are invited to unmute yourself, you can unmute yourself. But for the most part today, we are using the chat box to interact with each other. And at this time, I invite any members of the HathiTrust user support team who are listening in but not speaking to introduce yourselves in the chat so that others in the session can meet you. If you have any questions about the HathiTrust user support team or any comments, we encourage you to type them into chat, and all of us who are in this session will try to answer your questions. So it turns out that chat transcript is not turned on, and Melissa, I'm going to make you the host, Melissa, because I'm not sure how to turn on transcript. And can you turn this on?
Yeah, it's on now, Angelina. We're good.
Thank you so much. Okay, so what is the HathiTrust user support team? When you submit a problem report to HathiTrust or send a service request to our primary email, feedback@issues.hathitrust.org, most of the time your messages are reviewed and handled by members of our collaborative user support team. Our team members are staff and librarians from your libraries who choose to devote their time to answering patron and member questions. Sometimes our request may eventually get handled by a member of HathiTrust staff, but for the most part, you are communicating with individuals from other libraries. We hear from a broad range of users through HathiTrust user support, both librarians and general patrons. Anyone can submit a feedback report via our website, so we hear from patrons all around the world. One of the fun challenges we occasionally run into is when someone emails us in a non-English language and we have to go to Google Translate to figure out how to communicate. We get to learn about people's research projects, genealogy work, and their publications while working to meet their needs. So the graph that's displayed here on the right side of the slide shows the breakdown of the different kinds of requests we receive. By far, the largest number of requests are in the area of quality control for catalog records and digital scans in our collection. And Kat will talk more about how our team has evolved to handle this large number. 30% of the requests we receive are simply about access and use of HathiTrust books. Outside of quality and access tickets, we have a broad variety of general inquiries, including website problems and feature requests, tickets where we work with contributing libraries who wish to deposit their content into HathiTrust, and a wide range of other tickets. Leading this work has been, to be quite honest, simultaneously the most frustrating and the most rewarding activity I've done during my time at HathiTrust. Frustrating because HathiTrust is a small organization staffed by 12 people full-time, and there are limits to what we're able to do. Through user support, I see constant reminders of what more we could do, and we get valuable insights into what is broken and what needs to be improved. I'm able to carry over this feedback into other projects related to website and service improvements, but as anyone with a service mindset knows, it can be so incredibly difficult to tell someone that we can't do the thing they need from us. But this is balanced out by the rewards of this work. I am constantly inspired by the team members who choose to devote their time and effort to this activity. We'll hear from some of them shortly about their own personal experience. I'm grateful daily for these folks. They bring their outside experience to this work, and they thoughtfully and kindly engage with the many users who contact us. And now I'm going to turn it over to Kat. Kat, are you on?
Yes. Thanks, Angelina. I'm Kat Hagedorn at the University of Michigan Library. I'm the head of the Digital Content and Collections Department. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I've been a member of HathiTrust user support since the beginning, and I served as the chair of the Digital Objects Quality Corrections Group until August of this year. HathiTrust user support started 10 years ago in 2010 during a transition time for the digital library. The revamped system we were building provided a user feedback mechanism for the first time. We recognized almost immediately that we needed a more robust tracking system than spreadsheets. I hope you can't actually see the details on the images of spreadsheets on this slide, as they were as overwhelming as they look. We chose Jira as our product as it was much more intuitive compared to other feedback ticket tracking products we were looking at the time. And we started using Jira in February 2011. At the very beginning, we were a very few people answering patrons. Shout out to the original University of Michigan people who worked on this: Julia Lovett, Larry Wenzel, Chris Powell, and Jeremy York. Very quickly, however, by April 2011, the call for the user support working group went out, and members from HathiTrust partner libraries started working together to respond to our patrons. Our workflows were, not surprisingly, organically built over time. Developing these workflows made it clear that we needed specific user support groups devoted to certain aspects of HathiTrust. These are the Bibliographic Corrections Group, or BCG, formed in 2013, and the Digital Objects Quality Corrections Group, or DOC, formed in 2016. You'll hear more about these two groups from the next two presenters. We recruit members from partner institutions for all three groups to do the enormously important work of interacting with and solving our patrons' concerns. Our customer service principles, also developed over time and work done every day by every user support individual, have been hugely instrumental in supporting our mission as a member-stewarded digital library. Some statistics before I go. Over the course of the past 10 years, HathiTrust user support has received over 55,000 feedback tickets, an average of 16 tickets a day. And we've had 61 members of user support from 40 partner institutions during that time. I look forward to seeing HathiTrust user support grow and change during the next decade and past that. And now I believe I am passing it on to Tim.
All right. Thank you very much, Kat. Appreciate that. So, hi, everybody. My name is Tim Provenzano. I'm the current chair of the Digital Objects Quality Control Group for HathiTrust. I'm also the project manager for digital reformatting at Arizona State University. And I've been a member of the user support group since August of 2018. So Kat kind of gave a great introduction there, but just kind of to talk about the purpose of our group. We serve as a conduit for the HathiTrust community to report quality problems with digitized materials, and we work to remediate those problems whenever possible. The types of issues that we work on in the DOQC group, I've put an example here on the screen so you can see. I'm sure that many of you attending might have your own personal examples that you've come across. But one of the major problems that we have are foldouts that are that were not fully scanned, faint or otherwise illegible text, obstruction to the text, like there's a hand blocking some part of it. Sometimes the optical character recognition is faulty, so we work on those among many others. So to do this work, we have several team members at any given time made up of our amazing volunteers drawn from our member institutions. You'll be hearing from some of them later on too. It's how I started with HathiTrust, and I really highly recommend the experience for anyone in the audience who might be interested. As someone who works in digitization at my own institution, it's definitely interesting to see how things can go wrong in the digitization process. That informs what we do here as far as scanning as well. So in general, the digitized material for HathiTrust comes largely via Google, in addition to material from the Internet Archive and some that is digitized by our member institutions themselves. So a great deal of our work involves interfacing with Google and the representatives at our different institutions. We have a set series of processes to go through when a comment is sent in by a patron via HathiTrust, creating a ticket. We've recently made some revisions to our processes, so we're still in the process of testing and refining to see what is the best use of the resources and the time that our group has. So without going too far into the details, in general, our process is divided into a few discrete parts. First, we verify some basic info, that we can basically understand and replicate the problem that the user is seeing. After that, we route it to our digitization partner. Generally, that's Google, and just seeing if they have a fresh version of the item that is free from the error. If that is not successful, then we will check in with the institution that originally contributed the material and see if they can assist in the rescanning of the material. Anytime that a fix has been made to a volume, our team also needs to manually trigger the newest version of the digitized book into the HathiTrust environment. And throughout this whole process, we communicate with the patron. If we have questions about the problem, give them updates and let them know when the problem is resolved, or if we've reached the end of what we can do. Sometimes it can definitely take a while, so we appreciate the patience of our patrons quite a bit. And their diligence, in letting us know about issues with scanning, that definitely helps us and informs us of, best practices going forward. Our goal is to make the HathiTrust digital books usable and complete as possible, and community input is invaluable in this. I think what Angelina said, I definitely agree. Like sometimes it is challenging when you've sometimes reached the end of what you can do for patrons, but it's a great feeling when we know that we've able to fix something and provide a researcher with something that they need. All right, so that is what I have.
Thank you, Tim. Hi, everyone. I'm Graham Detmers, the metadata analyst at HathiTrust, and also the chair of the Bibliographic Corrections Group. My preferred pronouns are he, him, and his. So because HathiTrust is such a massive catalog of metadata submitted from our member libraries and depositors, there are bound to be errors of varying degrees of import. The Bibliographic Corrections Group is charged with researching any user and institutional feedback we get about possible errors, as well as contacting the contributing institution for correction. More on that in a second. We have a fantastic team of volunteers working tirelessly to help us improve the quality of the metadata in our corpus. You'll hear their names later from Angelina, but I also want to say that this team of fantastic people could also include you. Nominations are currently open, so stay tuned for more details at the end of the session. To make clear what I only implied a moment ago, all of the metadata in HathiTrust was received from one of our member institutions. We have a hands-off policy, so any errors we receive and are able to identify will need to be reported back to the originating institution for further review and handling. Erroneous or incomplete metadata can be the difference between access and invisibility. Sometimes erroneous dates can keep items closed when they could be open for full text viewing, or vice versa, which is very, very bad. But the errors don't have to be as legally consequential as that. They can be incomplete titles, mismatched records, wrong identifiers, typos, confusion between editions or reprints, author death dates, and so on. Our process, in brief, is when we receive a user report of an error, we evaluate the problem, doing whatever research is necessary to confirm that the reported error is in fact an error. After confirmation, we identify the originating institution for the record that needs review and then contact them with our findings and research, so they have all the information necessary to make their own evaluation. After that, we play the waiting game. That can happen very quickly, or in some cases, we are still waiting. And then, after whatever period of time, once we receive the updated records, the error will be considered fixed. At that point, we either report it back to the user, or we've already reported to the user that the error will be fixed at some point in time. I think that's pretty brief, but I think it gives you the general gist of our process and the work that we do. So I'm going to pass it back, I think, to Angelina.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kat, Tim, and Graham. So now we are going to go into having 14 speakers to answer this series of questions. So bear with us if we have a few hiccups as we pass the mic constantly during this process. So I am going to pose questions to members of the user support team, and they will answer them in the order that we have. So I've stopped sharing my screen. And to begin with, Lee, I wonder if you can tell us what your experience has been like serving on the HathiTrust user support team.
Hi, Angelina. Thank you for inviting me to talk. My name is Lee Billings. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm the metadata management librarian at the University of Michigan. I'm the longest serving member of the Bibliographic Corrections group. I've been on the team since August of 2013, so just over 7 years. Over the years, a lot has changed, of course, but overall, working on this group has been and continues to be a major learning experience. I've been a cataloger for about 8 years when I started on the group, so I felt confident in my abilities, but it turns out there was a lot I still did not know. Using JIRA alone was a big hurdle to overcome, as was understanding how various metadata errors actually present themselves in the HathiTrust catalog. It's not always as straightforward as you might think. When I began on the group, there were only 3 of us, so work could feel really overwhelming at times because it felt like there were a lot more problems than we had time to solve. I'm grateful that there are now 8 of us to help spread the load and make it easier to spend the time to figure things out. The workflow has improved over time as well. When I started, in many cases, we had to ask staff at the California Digital Library to send us snippets of MARC records so we could diagnose problems, which, considering time zones and workloads, sometimes it felt like it could take days to even figure out what the problem was, let alone try to resolve it. As time has gone on and new people have joined the group, our tools, workflows, and documentation have improved. Thank you to Angelina for helping with that. And now my time is mostly just spent investigating sometimes thorny cataloging issues, which can be very rewarding to resolve, all due to the work of catalogers at our contributing institutions, especially when we receive appreciative notes from users who reported the problem. One of the Other things I've really enjoyed about this group is that as I learn more about how metadata informs the display and use of materials in the catalog, I've been able to bring that knowledge back to my unit, University of Michigan, to help identify and inform local metadata cleanup projects. So we don't have to necessarily fix things one by one as they're reported by HathiTrust users. It's also been really great interacting with folks at other institutions as we work together to try to resolve some of the issues that we see. My background in particular is in Slavic cataloging, which is a very small sort of insular cataloging community. And sometimes it's easy to forget the broader impact of the work of cataloging. But this group has really allowed me to meet colleagues who I never would have otherwise. It's given me insight into how interconnected our resources are and how truly important metadata quality is. As Graham mentioned, small typos can really impact access to our resources in big ways. I've learned so much, and I feel like I continue to improve my skills with every issue I resolve, which is why I'm still on the group 7 years later. That's it. Thanks, Angelina.
Thank you so much, Lee. Funny story. When I was a student at the School of Information, I was actually a copy cataloger in Lee's unit. So we worked together back then, and it all came full circle when Lee joined the bib corrections group for HathiTrust. Okay, so the next person, Lynn Service, what has your experience been like serving on the user support team?
Great, thanks, Angelina. And I've had some issues with my sound, so I hope it doesn't cut out. So thank you for inviting me. So I'm Lynn Service, and I work at McMaster University Libraries, which is in Hamilton, Ontario, and that's near Toronto. So I've been on the user support group for the past 2 years, and I would describe my experience working on HathiTrust user support team as interesting, diverse, and rewarding. So for the past 2 years, I've been scheduled to answer the general support questions every other Thursday. And Thursday evenings in my home has been affectionately known as Hattie Night. And I look forward to settling down to my roster of questions to see what essentially anyone in the world is researching. And each question to me is kind of like a little adventure. You never know what you're going to get. And sometimes the questions take me down a path into an obscure government document or trying to guide someone through a policy, or on rare occasions, I get a question from somebody who I personally know, and that's always nice. The diversity comes from the diverse range of questions, the diverse collections, as well as the diverse range of users. And personally, the connection I make with the users has been my favorite part of the job. User support has allowed me to connect with folks from all over the world to help them along, maybe just a little bit, but to help them along in their research. And my true favorite part of the job has been able to help the same users over the past few years. And it's always a real treat for me to get those repeat users. And the rewarding part for me is when I get a really tricky question and then I figure it out and I send the response off and I get an answer from the user that's like, this is amazing, or thanks so much for helping me. And finally, during COVID, my Thursday night Hattie Nights has always given me a break from my current workload. And the work I do with the user support group is so different from what I do in my day-to-day duties. And I always find the experience to be refreshing, rewarding, and interesting. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Lynn.
Yeah.
All right, so going on to Liz, why do you continue to serve on the user support team?
Hi, so I'm Liz Moralia. I'm at UC San Diego. I'm the Assistant Program Director for Metadata Services. I'm also the head of Books and Serials Metadata, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. So I have been on the Bibliographic Corrections group for about 4 years, and the big picture reason why I continue to serve is just that I've been sort of using HathiTrust for as long as I've been in libraries, and it's such like a wonderful project. So being able to contribute to it in any way is always super rewarding, and feeling like a part of that, large scale digital opportunity. But, and also seconding what other people have said, hearing from users about how much they appreciate the service. And so it always feels wonderful to help improve that and make that better. But for my role in BCG in particular, obviously I'm a metadata person, and I really love the problem solving that comes with the HathiTrust metadata. untangling really complicated situations. I have a background in serials, and HathiTrust provides a lot of opportunity to work with serials questions and complications. So I've really loved being able to untangle that, and sort of seconding what Leah said, bringing that back to my own institution too, as we look at our stuff and try to like focus on that kind of cleanup. So that's been really wonderful, but also just seeing how core that metadata is for access and for users, and especially with ETOS, watching that really come to the forefront has been so rewarding to participate in sort of making those corrections and doing something that feels really tangible. So, and then also it's given me this really big picture understanding of the larger library metadata landscape. So that's a lot of it. And then lastly, just, you know, being able to meet people from everywhere and interact with colleagues at other institutions in a way that I wouldn't otherwise, whether it's users or, you know, contributing institutions resubmitting their records, or just the user support team. So I keep doing it because it's rewarding on a lot of different levels in a lot of different ways, whether it's that, like, you know, tangible problem solving or just the interpersonal connections, and then the project itself, really.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Liz. So we've heard a bit about what has been rewarding about this experience. And now I want to ask Lynn Bostwick what your perspective has been about what's most rewarding.
Thanks, Angelina. Hi, I'm Lynn Bostwick. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm at Texas State University Round Rock campus. And I'm a reference and instruction librarian, but I'm also a subject librarian for 3 departments in our College of Health Professions. And I have been with HathiTrust user support now for just over 2 years. I believe I started in August of 2018 as well. And I'm on the Digital Objects Quality Corrections group. So with that, the volumes that patrons report having some issues are sent my way. And what I find to be rewarding is paging through those volumes that I would otherwise not stumble upon on my own in the collection. For instance, just the other day, I saw a psalter from the 6th century written in the Coptic language. So you can find rare works like that. I've also seen, though, a dictionary of law from 1891. And I also see maps, musical scores, reports and statistics quite often. For instance, I just saw the other day trends of prices for locomotives, freight and passenger train cars, and floating equipment from the 1920s. So the volumes that you can find in HathiTrust digital collections, it covers such a wide variety of subjects, all different time periods, and are even written in different languages. So what I also find rewarding is that patrons, not only in the United States, but from around the world, have access to volumes that they might otherwise not have access to. And another thing that I find rewarding is letting patrons know when we are able to resolve an issue with a volume. And so getting back to them and letting them know that is so rewarding, because I realize that it allows for the perpetuation of scholarship or for personal interest endeavors. But then it also, every time we're able to provide resolution to a volume, it improves the quality of HathiTrust digital library just a little bit more for subsequent users. So those are just a few things that I find so rewarding from being on the Digital Objects Quality Corrections group. And it's also rewarding because it's so different from my other work as a librarian. So I really enjoy that too. So thank you so much. Thanks, Angelina.
Thank you so much, Lynn. That was so great to hear. So Jen, I would like to pose to you the question of what has been most rewarding.
Hi, I'm Jen Siegel. Pronouns are she, her, hers. I am the resource sharing coordinator over at Brandeis University, which is outside of Boston, Massachusetts. And I've been a member of the general support group for about 5 years now, which I am kind of shocked to realize. Doesn't seem like it's been that long. Okay, first of all, I'm a super nosy person, which is why I'm in interlibrary loan. I love seeing what people are researching and what they're studying. So for me, the most rewarding part of being in user support is seeing what people are researching and studying all around the world. And I expected to encounter a lot of academic users. I mean, obviously, Hathi is sort of aimed at people in academia. But seeing the number of users who are outside of like traditional university settings and seeing what they're researching has just been amazing. And it really drives home how important the HTTUS service is and how useful it is to people just everywhere doing all manner of things. And I poked around the tickets that I've been responsible for the past maybe 6 months and pulled out some of the more sort of interesting things that I've encountered. And I just wanted to mention a few, and don't worry, I'm not going to mention anyone's names. So I've had tickets from a Packard car company historian, somebody who has been researching his great grandfather who was in the cavalry in Maryland during the Civil War, a Turkish maritime historian, somebody who is doing research for their father's 92nd birthday because their dad was really interested in where their family came from exactly. And that I thought was just super, super sweet, and being able to help point that patron towards the right genealogy sources was just, it was a really nice feeling. I've also worked with an archivist for the American Socialist Party, somebody from the National Institute of Standards and Technology, a Ukraine resident who was researching Chernobyl because their dad was involved in it. I didn't get information on exactly what their dad did relative to it, but I thought that was fascinating. Somebody who was building a database to archive the people who worked on the Pacific Railroad in the 19th century. A fiber artist who was interested in weaving patterns from the 1920s. And a member of the First Nations of Canada who is researching his family's or group's fishing history. So we get so many types of users researching so many things, and it's just amazing that we can provide things that help these people do what they want to do and what they need to do. So knowing that we can do that and knowing that what our institutions contribute is useful around the world has just been amazingly rewarding. So there you go.
Thank you so much, Jen. So now we want to get into the real questions. Well, I mean, these were all real questions, but the tough ones. Maggie, what has been most difficult about serving on the user support team?
Hi, I'm Maggie Halterman-Duss. I'm from the University of Iowa Libraries, and I am on the general user support group, and I'm starting my 3rd year. One of the most difficult things is explaining the copyright policy and copyright law, especially with folks who are based internationally or are interested in something from countries where there's not necessarily a really good way to handle it. I know one recently involved Singaporean government documents, but they were post-colonial, and so there was some weirdness with the transition from British to independent rule, things like that. And also because people don't necessarily have a good understanding of copyright in general, including one time someone said they were going to basically send the DOJ after us for not having not giving access to them for some reason, for something that was still in copyright and they were outside the United States. So copyright, luckily I'm a copyright, not exactly wonk, but like a nerd about it, and find it very interesting. But yeah, it's very difficult, and it's unfortunate that, you know, you have to say, I'm sorry, I can't do this for you. We can't help. It's both our policy, it's the law, things like that. But, and you know, sometimes it's difficult where people get a little bit snippy, especially because there's a screen between the two of you, and they don't necessarily, sometimes I've had people go, oh, well, you're just a librarian, so what do you know? I'm like, I went to school. But overall, it's been a wonderful experience, and it's also helped me, you know, explain things going on with HathiTrust to other members of the library I work at, especially, I'm technically in the user services department, even though I don't usually work with users. And so when I can talk to my colleague, who is the user services librarian, to explain what's going on, that's really helpful.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Maggie. So now, Chad, can you tell us from your perspective what has been the most difficult?
Yes, well, welcome everybody. I'm Chad Pearson. I'm a reference and public services librarian at Texas A&M University. Pronouns he, him, his. Been on user support, the HathiTrust user support, about 2 years. So similar to Tim and some others on here. I really appreciate a lot of Maggie's insights, and I second those as well. And so I'll just tread over some slightly different ground from more of a subjective user support perspective. So one of the things I found challenging initially when I started 2 years ago was the learning curve of all the documentation. There's a very robust and very helpful series of documentation you have to wade through, but it definitely helps you respond better to questions and route them properly. So, and also avoid possibly some legal issues like Maggie was talking about, because we have a lot of questions that come about copyright, and we don't want to be answering ad hoc, without an informed response. So, so that was challenging, but also very rewarding. It gave me a lot of insights into how to handle these type of questions. And I also do a lot of question response because I'm the main monitor of our LibAnswers question queue system at A&M. So a lot of similarities in some of the questions. I would say as well, another thing that can be difficult is I really like Lynn's response about her HathiTrust nights, because you need to make sure on your day that you're designated to really have good time management skills. All of us are quite busy. And so I've learned you never can anticipate approximately how many questions may be in a queue that particular day. So you need to leave enough time to handle those. And I usually start my day a little later than others, more on like a second shift. So I really have to be aware of that. But it's been very rewarding. I really like getting on there. It'd be really terrible if there were only like 2 or 3. So I'm actually glad when there's a robust amount of questions to get through. But you do need to leave that time. And no matter if you have meetings that day or whatever, just make sure you devote the time to it, because remember, you are impacting users around the world. We're trying to help them out. Another thing I would second with what Maggie had said is it is very hard to say no. Especially if you've been doing customer service a long time. And a lot of times the no part comes about when we're dealing with copyright issues, et cetera. Somebody really wants access to a particular work, but I'm sorry, you're either in the wrong IP address, or it's not public domain, et cetera. And that's also been fascinating when we've had the HTUS service. It's opened up a lot more questions about that. And made it challenging sometimes to respond to certain use cases, but also incredibly insightful. So I would say, just from I'm always a yes person. I love to give people what they need, and luckily there's a lot of ways we try to help them out, but there are certain times we do have to say no. And if you have that customer service orientation, you feel for the person and you really want them to have access to the work, so you give them as many options as possible. But overall, my experience has been positive. It's just keep those things in mind. Certainly, you have to have good time management, learn how to say no, and also just be ready to understand a lot of how to route questions.
Thank you so much, Chad, for sharing that. Okay, so we're coming on to our last question, and I want to turn it over to Linda to tell us about how serving on user support has impacted your own work at your institution.
Hi, my name is Linda Tolley. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm the librarian in the Grayson Hunt Memorial English Reading Room, which is part of UCLA's Department of English. We're considered an affiliated library unit at UCLA, and our holdings are included in the central UCLA library catalog. Our collection and services complement and supplement those of the main library system, and we work closely with the subject librarian, who's the liaison to the English department. So we're physically embedded in the English department. In fact, we're surrounded by faculty offices, so we get a good deal of usage from the faculty and students in the department. Since HathiTrust is an invaluable resource for humanities scholars, serving on the general support team over the past few years has given me a greater understanding that's enabled me to better help our users with HathiTrust resources. I've also learned a great deal about copyright, which has come in handy when working with faculty and students. As it turns out, the types of questions that our local users have about HathiTrust tend to be the same types of questions that users from all over the world have when they submit questions or report problems through the HathiTrust feedback form, including questions about searching, about full view versus limited view, about downloading. For example, I was helping a faculty member who was frustrated by some scanning problems, so I was able to provide input on how to report quality issues. Sometimes it's preferable or necessary to direct our local users to the feedback form so that the questions and data can be captured in the JIRA ticketing system. Over the past several months in particular, some faculty and graduate students have sought out help finding online resources that can be used in their teaching and research. So my work on the general support team has helped me help our users with HTUS. As others have mentioned, HTUS has been extremely beneficial during the COVID crisis. When I'm working with students remotely, I can show them how HathiTrust is making some of our inaccessible print collections available for online reading, even if they can't currently get hold of the library's print copy. On a slightly more personal note, the breadth and depth of the HathiTrust collection has made a particularly unpleasant experience a bit more bearable. In February of 2020, the English reading room suffered a major flood, and we lost about 10% of our collection to flood damage. Some of this lost material simply cannot be replaced, so having a permanent scan of material in HathiTrust not only helps with making some difficult replace versus withdraw decision, but it's comforting to know the material is preserved as part of the cultural heritage, even if we can't preserve our physical copy. I can genuinely say that working on the user support team has been a rewarding, educational, and invaluable experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda, for sharing that. And now, Emily, how has serving on HathiTrust user support impacted your own work at your institution?
Thanks, Angelina. Hi, everybody. My name is Emily Holmes. She, her, hers, and my day job is Director of Preservation at the Columbia University Libraries. I also teach as an adjunct professor at San Jose State University. I teach preservation management there, and my work on the Digital Objects Quality Group has come in handy for both of those jobs. And I've been on the Digital Object Quality Corrections Group since February of 2017. I had to look that up because I can't remember, but it's been a great experience. And I also wanted to just mention before I talk a little bit about how Hathi has affected me, that I see the names of some of our loyal users on this group. And I just wanted to sort of shout out to them and say thank you for helping us be able to make Hathi a better place for our users. So Hathi, working on the group, has helped me in my day job in very basic kind of ways, like learning about how Hathi actually works, what's included in Hathi. As Lynn Bostwick and Jen Siegel were saying, just getting more knowledgeable about lots of different kinds of collections that are on Hathi, and getting a fuller picture of all of Hathi's services as well, and the issues and problems that tend to come up with digital images. My work of sort of seeing, behind the curtain at Hathi has also helped me in my teaching to help students understand how digitization works, how digital repositories work, what a kind of light archive looks like, and how the information contained within can be accessed by them. I'm also at Columbia the contact for bibliographic collections for our own collections and for digital corrections. So my understanding of how the system works has helped me be able to function better in those roles, working with Hathi and as Columbia's contact with Hathi. And then finally, Hathi has helped me in sort of an unexpected and extremely practical way in my own job, and that is learning about JIRA ticketing. When I started in 2017 on Hati, I had never worked in a JIRA ticket. I'd kind of seen them, but I didn't know how they worked. It was a bit of a struggle at first, but it's really proven to be invaluable to my work. So just even being able to navigate through a ticket that I might put in for our help desk here at Columbia if I'm having trouble with my own computer, being able to track and manage my tickets. We're using JIRA ticketing for a big project that we're working on at Columbia right now for tracking a workflow for an extremely complex AV digitization project. Because I have become so familiar and comfortable with JIRA ticketing, I've been able to use that skill to be able to track and manage my own work with complex projects. Now that I'm become at least semi-proficient at JIRA, I'm also looking to incorporate that in other areas of project management within my own division, such as patron orders and conservation work as well. So it's been extremely rewarding experience for me.
Thank you so much, Emily. I hear you on the JIRA love. One of the most painful tools I ever had to learn how to use, but once you figure it out, it's so powerful. Not to like drop brand names or anything like that. Okay, so we have sort of approached the end of our session, and I just want to, oh, Melissa, can you give me screen sharing again? I seem to have lost it. Okay. I have that power again. Okay, good. I just want to give a shout out to all of our current members. So we heard from a small portion of folks here today. We have a larger group that is currently serving on the user support team. And in addition, thank you to all of our previous members. We have somewhere around 60 people who have served on the HathiTrust user support team over the years. And I miss these folks. I've worked with them closely in the past, but we still hear from them sometimes through user support because many of these folks now contact our user support team from the other end of things. So thank you to all the folks who have contributed to HathiTrust user support and to supporting the needs of our users. And as Graham pointed out, we have an open call for members of the user support team. If you're interested in joining our work and supporting the users of HathiTrust, please go to the Google form at bit.ly/HTUS 20 in all caps for the HTUS 20. This call for members is open through Monday of next week, I believe is when we're closing it. So you have a few days to get a nomination in, and I hope to hear from you all there as well. So thank you again for joining us today. A couple of notes before we wrap up. You can contact the user support team with any inquiries or requests for services or quality problems by emailing our main communication address, which is feedback@issues.hathitrust.org. There will be a survey that goes out to attendees of this session later today, and please complete that survey to provide us with feedback. We also invite you to continue this conversation on our HathiTrust community Slack space. And I believe most, if not all, of the user support team have also joined that Slack space. So we hope to continue the conversation there. I received a request to put the link into chat. So there goes the link to the forum if you're interested in signing up for the HathiTrust user support team. And that is our program for today. I think we have time for a question or two if anyone has them. But otherwise, we look forward to hearing from you in our Jira ticketing system or on Slack. Oops, I put the wrong link into chat and I will fix that. It lists the current members, not a form for volunteering. Yes, this is what happens when we try to work during a pandemic. Marie asked in chat, is it possible to hit the feedback button too much? Sometimes I worry I'm bothering you all. Marie, it's so good to see you here. We definitely count you one of our regular users. And I would say no, there's no such thing as hitting the feedback form too much. There are limitations to what we're able to do. And so I think it's disappointing for those of us who handle your tickets that we can't always help solve the problems. And I see a bunch of folks are chiming in to say, keep on sending those tickets. All right. Okay. Let's wrap up this session. I am going to fix the URL that is in the slide deck, and you all will get access to these materials with the corrected URL I believe we're sending out the slides afterwards. So thank you for all joining us and have a good rest of your day.